Elohim, or Hebrews, chapter 7. For this Melchizedek, sovereign of Shalem, priest of the Most High Elohim, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the sovereigns and blessed him, to whom also Abraham gave a 10th part of all, his name being translated indeed, first, sovereign of righteousness, and then also sovereign of Shalem, that is, sovereign of peace. Without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but having been made like the Son of Elohim, remains a priest for all time. Now see how great this one was, to whom even the ancestor of Abraham gave a 10th of the choicest booty. And truly, those who are of the sons of Levi, who receive the priesthood, have a command to receive tithes from the people according to the Torah, that is, from their brothers, though they've come from the loins of Abraham. However, the one whose genealogy is not derived from them received tithes from Abraham and blessed the one who held the promises. And it is beyond all dispute that the lesser is blessed by the better. And here it is men who die that receives tithes. But there it is someone of whom it is witnessed that he lives. And one might say that through Abraham, even Levi, who received tithes, gave tithes, for he was still in the loins of his father when Melchizedek met him. Truly then, if perfection were through the Levitical priesthood, for under it the people were still given the Torah, why was there still a need for another priest to arrive according to the order of Melchizedek and not be called according to the order of Aaron? For the priesthood being changed, of necessity there takes place a change of law also. For he of whom this is said belongs to another tribe, from which no one had attended at the slaughter place. For it is perfectly clear that our master arose from Yehuda, a tribe about which Moshe never spoke of concerning priesthood. And this is clearer still. If another priest arises in the likeness of Melchizedek, who has become, not according to the Torah of fleshly command, but according to the power of endless life, for he does witness, you are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. For there is indeed a setting aside of the former command because of its weakness and unprofitableness, for the Torah perfected not, but the bringing in of a better expectation through which we draw near to Elohim. And it was not without an oath, for they indeed became priests without an oath, but he became priest with an oath by him who said to him, Yehovah has sworn and shall not regret. You are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. By as much as this Yeshua has become a guarantor of a better covenant. And indeed, those that became priests were many, because they were prevented by death from continuing. But he, because he remains forever, has an unchangeable priesthood. Therefore, he is also able to save completely those who draw near to Elohim through him, ever living to make intercession for them. For it was fitting that we should have such a high priest, kind, innocent, undefiled, having been separated from sinners and exalted above the heavens, who does not need, as those high priests, to offer up slaughter offerings day by day, first for his own sins and then for those of the people. For this he did once, for all, when he offered up himself. For the Torah appoints as high priests men who have weakness. But the word of the oath, which came after the Torah, appoints the Son having been perfected forever. Chapter 8. Now, the summary of what we're saying is, we have such a high priest who is seated at the right hand of the throne of the greatness in the heavens, and who serves in the set-apart place and of the true tent, which Jehovah set up, and not man. For every high priest is appointed to offer both gifts and slaughters. So it was also necessary for this one to have somewhat to offer. For if indeed he were on earth, he would not be a priest, since there are priests who offer gifts according to the Torah, who serve a copy and a shadow of the heavenly, as Moshe was warned when he was about to make the tent, for he said, "See that you make all according to the pattern shown you on the mountain." But now he has obtained a more excellent service, inasmuch as he is also mediator of a better covenant, which was constituted on better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then no place would have been sought for a second. For finding fault with them, he says, "See, the days are coming, says Jehovah, when I shall conclude with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah a renewed covenant, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Mitzrayim, because they did not continue in my covenant, and I disregarded them, says Jehovah. Because this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, says Jehovah, giving my laws in their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And they shall by no means teach each one his neighbor and each one his brother, saying, Know Jehovah, because they all shall know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them. Because I shall forgive their unrighteousness and their sins and their lawlessnesses, I shall no longer remember. By saying renewed, he has made the first old. Now what becomes old and growing aged is near disappearing. Chapter 9. Now the first covenant indeed had regulations of worship and the earthly set-apart place, for a tent was prepared, the first part, in which was the lampstand and the table and the showbread, which is called the set-apart place. And after the second veil, the part of the tent which is called most set apart, to which belonged the golden censer and the ark of the covenant overlaid on all sides with gold, in which were the golden pot that held the manna, and the rod of Aaron that budded, and the tablets of the covenant. And above it, the cherubim of esteem were overshadowing the place of atonement, about which we do not now speak in detail. And these, having been prepared like this, the priests always went into the first part of the tent, accomplishing the services. But into the second part, the high priest went alone, once a year, not without blood, which he offered for himself and for sins of ignorance of the people. This set-apart spirit signifying this, that the way into the most set-apart place was not yet made manifest while the first tent has a standing, which was a parable for the present time in which both gifts and slaughters are offered, which are unable to perfect the one serving as to his conscience, only as to foods and drinks, and different washings and fleshly regulations imposed until a time of setting matters straight. But Messiah, having become a high priest of the coming good matters, through the greater and more perfect tent, not made with hands, that is, not of this creation, he entered into the set-apart places once for all, not with the blood of goats and calves, but with his own blood, having obtained everlasting redemption. For if the blood of bulls and goats and the ashes of a heifer, sprinkling the defiled, set apart for the cleansing of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of the Messiah, who through the everlasting Spirit offered himself unblemished to Elohim, cleanse your conscience from dead works to serve the living Elohim. And because of this, he is the mediator of a renewed covenant, so that death, having taken place for redemption of the transgressions under the first covenant, those who are called might receive the promise of the everlasting inheritance. For where a covenant is, it's necessary for the death of the covenanted one to be established. For a covenant over those dead is firm, since it is never valid while the covenanted one is living. Therefore, not even the first covenant was instituted without blood. For when, according to Torah, every command had been spoken by Moshe to all the people, he took the blood of calves and goats with water and scarlet wool and hyssop, and sprinkled both the book itself and all the people, saying, "This is the blood of the covenant which Elohim commanded you." And in the same way, he sprinkled with blood both the tent and all the vessels of the service. And according to the Torah, almost all is cleansed with blood, and without shedding of blood, there's no forgiveness. It was necessary then that the copies of the heavenly ones should be cleansed with these, but the heavenly ones themselves with better slaughter offerings than these. For Messiah is not entered into a set-apart place made by hand, figures of the true, but the heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of Elohim on our behalf. Not that he should offer himself often, as the high priest enters into the set-apart place year by year with blood not his own. For if so, he would have had to suffer often since the foundation of the world. But now he has appeared once for all at the end of the ages to put away sin by the offering of himself. And as it awaits men to die once, and after this judgment, so also the Messiah, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, shall appear a second time apart from sin to those waiting for him unto deliverance. Chapter 10. For the Torah, having a shadow of good matters to come, and not the image itself of the matters, was never able to make perfect those who draw near with the same slaughter offerings which they offer continually year by year. Otherwise, would they have not ceased to be offered? Because those who served, once cleansed, would have no more consciousness of sins. But in those offerings is a reminder of sins year by year. It's impossible for blood of bulls and goats to take away sins. Therefore, coming into the world, he says, slaughtering and meal offering you did not desire, but a body you've prepared for me. In ascending offerings and offerings for sin you did not delight. Then I said, See, I come. In the roll of the book it's been written concerning me, to do your desire, O Elohim. Saying above, slaughter and meal offerings and ascending offerings and offerings for sin you did not desire nor delighted in, which are offered according to the Torah. Then he said, See, I come to do your desire, O Elohim. He takes away the first to establish the second. By that desire, we've been set apart through the offering of the body of Yeshua Messiah once for all. And indeed, every priest stands day by day doing service and repeatedly offering the same slaughter offerings, which are never able to take away sins. But he, having offered one slaughter offering for sins for all time, sat down at the right hand of Elohim, waiting for that time onward, until his enemies are made a footstool for his feet. For by one offering he's perfected for all time those who are being set apart. And the set apart Spirit also witnesses to us. For after having said before, This is the covenant that I shall make with them after those days, says Yehovah, giving my laws into their hearts, and in their minds I shall write them, and their sins and their lawlessnesses I shall remember no more. Now where there is forgiveness of these, there's no longer a slaughter offering for sin. So, brothers, having boldness to enter into the set-apart place by the blood of Yeshua, by a new and living way which he instituted for us, through the veil, that is his flesh, and having a high priest over the house of Elohim, let us draw near with a true heart in completeness of belief, having our hearts sprinkled from a wicked conscience, and our bodies washed with clean water. Let us hold fast the confession of our expectation without yielding, for he who promised is trustworthy. And let us be concerned for one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging, and so much more as you see the day coming near. For if we sin purposely after we've received the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a slaughter offering for sins, but some fearsome anticipation of judgment and a fierce fire which is about to consume the opponents. Anyone who's disregarded the Torah of Moshe dies without compassion on the witness of 2 or 3 witnesses. How much worse punishment do you think shall he deserve, who's trampled the Son of Elohim underfoot, counted the blood of the covenant by which he was set apart as common, and insulted the Spirit of favor? For we know him who said, Vengeance is mine, I shall repay, says Yehovah. And again, Yehovah shall judge his people. It's fearsome to fall into the hands of the living Elohim. But remember the former days, when, after you were enlightened, you endured a great struggle with sufferings. On the one hand, you were exposed to reproaches and pressures, and on the other hand, you became sharers with those who were so treated, for you sympathized with me in my chains, and you accepted with joy the seizure of your possessions, knowing that you have a better and a lasting possession for yourselves in the heavens. Do not then lose your boldness, which has a great reward. For you have need of endurance, so that when you've done the desire of Elohim, you receive the promise. For yet a little while, he who is coming shall come and shall not delay. But if the righteous shall live by belief, but if anyone draws back, my being has no pleasure in him. But we're not of those who draw back to destruction, but of belief to the preservation of life.